Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many new and familiar faces both in the room. Thank you all for joining us this evening. This is the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors regular business meeting being held on February 26, 2024 at 6 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and presentation of Navy Junior Reserves Officer Training Corps, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving the United States Armed Forces, both past and present, the elected leaders for the state of Pennsylvania, and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for in our community. Color guard, please post colors. Please be seated. Agenda item 3, the executive session announcement. The Board of School Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas: legal, personnel, or real estate matters on February 26, 2024. Superintendent's report, Dr. Stout.
Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. We're going to start tonight with Josh Zhang and the Student Council Executive President Report.
Good evening to everyone in person and online. We have a couple of things on our reminders. So starting with the high school, this year the high school has had the honor of hosting the PMEA District 12 Course Festival, with 16 of our students joining 150 other students from 31 different schools across the area to audition and perform. We were also recently represented by 3 students at the PMEA District Orchestra Festival. Last year's regional champion indoor percussion team has started competition with the debut of their new show, The Guardians. Our DECA chapter competed in Hershey last week with a number of students qualifying for the national conference. Our mock trial team has progressed to the preliminary rounds and re-enters the courtrooms next Tuesday. The NJROTC program recently participated in its annual inspection and received strong reviews from the inspecting officer. As for winter athletic sports, they are beginning to come to a close, though many of our teams and athletes are still competing. The OJR ice hockey team recently held their senior night and now prepares for postseason play. The girls swimming and diving team won this year's regular season PAC championship, as well as the PAC championship meet, and competed in districts this past weekend. Girls wrestling, boys wrestling, and boys swimming and diving all participated in the district level events over last week as well. 4 members of our indoor track and field team participated in state championships in State College yesterday, while the competition cheer team recently competed in the national championships in Orlando, Florida. Spring sports practice starts next week. As we begin to look ahead, our counseling department held its annual junior informational night for families last week to formally begin the post-secondary process for students. All 10th and 11th grade students will participate in the college fair next week, with Wildcat Futures sessions beginning shortly as well. Preparations for the junior prom and the senior prom are firmly underway, and the prom fashion show continued for the 21st year supported by a loyal army of parent volunteers, to which we are incredibly grateful for their efforts, which help to reduce the cost of prom for all students. Lastly, we want to remind families that we are hosting conferences next week and encourage people to sign up and check in with teachers. Transitioning over to our middle school, the middle school students enjoyed participating in the PTA-sponsored book fair last week. Several students received a private shopping experience on February 22nd as a result of their participation in RAD, Reading After Dark Night. The middle school is also very excited for our student presentation of SpongeBob the Musical, which will begin on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Our middle school chapter of the Tri-Am Musical Honor Societies will host a benefit concert on March 8th at 7 p.m. in the middle school. And the Owen J. Roberts Middle School will be hosting the Buddy Ball on March 15th from 6 to 9 p.m. We look forward to welcoming some awesome students for what is sure to be an amazing event. Finally, for elementary schools, the parent-teacher organizations and associations in all of the elementary schools have been busy offering a variety of activities for families, including special dances, pizza bingo nights, or talent shows. We are extremely fortunate to have such organizations who partner with elementary schools to not only provide such activities, but to support the schools in so many other ways. Finally, elementary teachers are busy preparing for the upcoming March parent-teacher conferences that will be held on Wednesday and Thursday, March 6th and 7th. Families will have an opportunity to discuss their children's progress on the recent mid-year assessments, as well as discuss the curriculum for the remainder of the school year. We encourage all parents to take the opportunity of selecting a virtual or in-person conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Tonight, we're recognizing Mike Gola, who is receiving a certificate of extraordinary personal action for his actions when one of his colleagues at East Vincent Elementary was in distress and came to him for help. Mike's wife, Amy, and son, Aaron, are also here this evening. And I have Dr. Ed Smith, the principal from East Vincent Elementary, who would like to present a certificate to Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. Real quick, though, before I turn this over to Mr. Gula, I would like to thank you and the board for recognizing him. He's an unassuming, one of our unassuming workers. I've known the Gulas for almost 22 years, and Mike has done everything with due diligence, cares for his position and his job, and this is just amazing. I asked him, hey, what was going on in the lunchroom? Well, I was doing this and doing that. I said, no. You saved somebody's life. Tell me about that. I was, oh, yeah. I was walking by, and then he went into the story, but it's my honor to present this to Mr. Gula, and thank you for allowing us to do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dr. Smith. And I concur with Dr. Smith. When I spoke to Mike about what he had done, very humble, did not want any recognition. So we decided to bring him to a school board meeting to recognize him. But Mike, thank you so much for what you do. And your humility means an awful lot. So thank you. Also tonight, night of celebrating. So I see we have, I have Mr. Stoltzfus here, but I want to read something. We're also recognizing Charan Garamella. He's the OJR 8th grader who was named champion of the Chester County Spelling Bee. Charan now moves on to the national competition, which will be held May 26th. We wish Charan the best of luck. So Mr. Stoltzfus, I'll have you come up.
How am I supposed to follow a guy saving someone's life?
Yeah.
We'll do our best. Equally as impressive. So as was mentioned back in January, Sharon won our middle school B after about, I don't know, 27, 30 rounds or something like that, Sharon, yeah. I would have been at around round 10 for the record, but about 30 rounds or so, defeated some stiff competition, and that took him to the Chester County B February 7th. Is that right? Okay, you correct me if I mess any of this up. February 7th, he went down representing Owen J. Roberts at the Chester County Spelling Bee. And I got a call late that afternoon from Mr. Hoagland, our faculty advisor who runs our spelling bee, telling us that Sharon had won, which I was floored by. Awesome. Expected him to do well, but to win is just phenomenal. And I immediately questioned that, have we ever had anyone else win? I didn't know that we did, but apparently before my time as an administrator, we had. But he will now go to the Inner Harbor late May 26th, to compete for at the national level with about 200 other participants down there, which is perfect. May 26th gives us plenty of time for some training. We have a strict regimen, vegetables, fruits, and alphabet soup. So he's going to be ready to go, and I'm sure he's going to do great things. But if nothing else, enjoy the experience, and congratulations to you, Sharon, for that. I'm going to give you this.
So, Sharon, which word did you win the spelling bee on? I have some board members asking me that. And do you want to spell it for us?
Or do you want Dr. John to try?
Yeah.
The Chester County one, my winning word was monotreme. It means like it's another word for platypus. It's monotreme.
Okay, I'll take your word for it that you spelled it correctly. So,
That's actually what you get done.
so each year I do attend the middle school spelling bee, and I make sure I have a good meal beforehand because, as Mr. Stoltzfus says, it goes a lot of rounds. We have some really good spellers, but congratulations. I'm sure you'll represent us very well at the national competition. This evening, we also welcome Sarah Evans, our newly selected school board director. Sarah will be officially sworn into office tomorrow and will complete Mr. Doherty's term, which ends December 2025. February has been an exciting month for celebrations and milestones. Our schools have been celebrating Black History Month over the past few weeks. In addition, this month also featured National School Counseling Week and Bus Driver Appreciation Day. We are honored to announce that Carol Weston has won our February Employee of the Month Award. Carol is a paraprofessional at East Vincent Elementary School and has worked in our district for 10 years. The entire Wildcat community is invited to join us and the OJR Education Foundation for the Wall of Fame Awards on March 18th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. in the high school auditorium. Just a reminder, and Josh, I know it was in your report, but parent-teacher conferences are scheduled for March 6th and 7th. Students will have half days of school on those days. And lastly, our next town hall meeting will be held on Thursday, April 4th at the District Service Center. So that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Stepp. We are going to be moving to public comment, but I'm going to pause for one moment here because we do have a correction on this evening's agenda, and I want to make sure it's noted before we move to public comment. On agenda item 13.2, approval of out-of-state overnight travel. We have an approval for out-of-state overnight travel for the high school indoor percussion members. There are two of them on tonight's agenda. One of them is incorrect. So an approval for 34 high school indoor percussion members to participate in the World Guard International National Competition, April 17 to 20 in Dayton, Ohio. And it goes on to list the chaperones. This trip will be both days, and they will not be traveling back and forth. They will be staying overnight. And it is correct that there is no cost to the district. But I did want to make note for that as we come to later in the agenda for voting. Is that clear for everyone? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So with that, we will open it up for our first public comment. 5.1. There are two opportunities for public comment. The first section is for information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda that will be voted on tonight. Speakers are to indicate your name, your township of residence, and the items on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. The second section at the end of the meeting is for residents to speak on any item. Also, if you have a question for the school board, please email all Board of School Directors at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net and you will receive a written response.
For anyone online who would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
Good evening. My name is Dan Bechtold. I live in North Coventry, and I'm here to speak about the district master facilities plan that's on the agenda. Before I begin, I'd just like to express my sincere gratitude to the board and administration for the decision to adjust school start times. Having experienced the positive impact of such a change in the district I work for, I can attest that this was one of the most important and impactful decisions that we have made for our students. Thank you for placing the well-being of O&J Roberts children at the forefront. Additionally, I'm here to seek your support in revising the proposed renovations for our high school and middle school campus to incorporate a crucial addition, a permanent wrestling room. I appreciate the board and administration's commitment to improving our infrastructure and fostering environments where students can pursue their passions. Extra and co-curricular activities play such a pivotal role in the development of our adolescents. Enhancing our facilities will undoubtedly enrich the experiences of the student athletes, their families, and visiting spectators. However, our campus is notably lacking a dedicated wrestling room. Considering various metrics, it's clear why Pennsylvania consistently leads the nation in wrestling, producing the highest number of Division I national qualifiers and All-Americans year after year. This achievement is a testament to the state's rich wrestling culture. In 2023, Pennsylvania won 3 age-level national freestyle wrestling championships in Fargo and secured first place at Super 32s in Greensboro. Super 32s is the largest and most prestigious high school folk style tournament in the country, underscoring our state's preeminence in the sport. O&J Roberts contributed significantly to Pennsylvania's success in 2023 with 2 double All-Americans in Fargo and 2 high school division All-Americans in Greensboro. Our wrestlers have also made 67 appearances at the PIAA state tournament, with 3 underclassmen placing last year, all of whom are presently competing in the postseason this year for O&J Roberts. The current renovation plans do not address the needs of our K-12 student athletes involved in wrestling, placing O&J Roberts among the few in the pack without a standalone wrestling room. This oversight leads to logistical challenges, safety concerns, and restricts the program's growth. I urge the administration and the school board to explore options for integrating a permanent wrestling room into the proposed capital plan. This facility is vital for our 3 teams that currently share the high school auxiliary gym. By including a wrestling room in the renovation plans, we demonstrate our commitment to our wrestling community and leverage the economies of scale such a project offers. Thank you for considering this crucial addition to our school's infrastructure and for your continued dedication to the welfare of our students.
Topic. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Ryan Logan, Warwick Township. My wife Heather and I are 1995 alumni of O&J Roberts. 4 of our 5 children attend school in the district, and our youngest will begin next year. I am standing here tonight to advocate for the sport of wrestling. OJR has a long and storied history of success in wrestling. In the past 10 years, our program has produced over 30 student athletes that have earned the distinction of being a state qualifier or state place winner. It's important to note that Pennsylvania is the most competitive wrestling state in the country. For as long as I can remember, O&J Roberts has not had a dedicated area for our wrestling teams. When I wrestled for Howard Sage in the early 90s, we rolled mats up and down in the cafeteria every day after school for practice. Many years later, the auxiliary gym was constructed and the team began rolling mats up and down in there every day for practice. With the current plan of expansion, and an immense one at that, there is no better time than now to plan for a proper practice facility that will not only enhance all of our wrestling program levels, but will also provide a dedicated and much safer environment for our wrestlers. In addition, establishing a new wrestling room will save practice time, eliminate facility conflicts with other sports and activities, and provide adequate space for our student athletes. Also, as the girls team at the high school level continues to grow, a standalone girls middle school program will begin to flourish. Our current space is not adequate for the teams we have now. We need to be forward thinking at OJR. I think it is also worthy to note that OJR and only one other school in our athletic conference don't have a dedicated facility for wrestling. All others do. Let me close with a bit more on forward thinking because the wave is coming. For the last 9 years, I've had the privilege of being the president of Norchester's youth wrestling program. Over those 9 years, I've watched this program grow beyond what many thought was possible. 4 years ago, Norchester had to stop using our school's facilities for our practices as the school could not accommodate our growing program and provide time slots suitable for our younger wrestlers to get home and in bed at a reasonable hour. This led to Norchester renting space at Camp Sankenak at a cost of over $12,000 a year, which for our program is not an easy cost to swallow. Norchester Youth Wrestling is part of the Inter-County Wrestling League, also known as the ICWL. The ICWL has youth wrestling teams that represent over 50 surrounding school districts. It is the largest youth wrestling league in the United States. This past year, Norchester had the largest single school district roster in the entire league with almost 150 young wrestlers. This is clear evidence that our OJR community is passionate about wrestling and committed to seeing the sport grow. On behalf of the OJR community, I want to say thank you for your consideration in the building of a dedicated wrestling room as part of the new master expansion and renovation plan. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kirk Reinbold from West Vincent Township. I wrestled in middle school in New York State. We hated to come to Pennsylvania. Anyhow, thank you for having me here. I'd like to make a comment on agenda item 7.8, the acknowledged receipt of the district-wide master facility plan. I'm a clean energy advocate based on years of advocacy at the township, county, and 5-county Southeast Pennsylvania region. And I really want to commend the district on this plan as both a parent and a taxpayer. Facilities get old, mechanical plants and systems begin to fail, and how your facilities are used changes over time. But fortunately, you have a plan to ensure a smooth transition. While some people see only cost of this, I see opportunities on multiple fronts: decreasing operating costs, a healthier environment for students, and maybe even career paths for your students can be forged. A side effect of this is to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, which will ultimately benefit all of our children. The facilities plan is submitted as bold, but I have a few suggestions to consider. Adding access roads and parking makes me wonder where chargers for electric vehicles could be located. It's estimated that half of the vehicles purchased in 2030 will be electric. Where could chargers be placed for staff, students, and parents? At least planning for those before excavation makes sense now. Just running conduit right now is very cost effective. It mentions that many roofs on the middle and high schools need to be replaced. Will they be strengthened to hold an additional 3 pounds per square foot for solar panels? The current panels you had installed, over 2,000 of them in 2012, creates over 500 kilowatt hours of electricity. That's 50 homes. This system currently saves the district $30,000 a year in utility costs. Plus, you should be getting about $15,000 a year from the Pennsylvania Utility Commission. Upfront costs for some heating and cooling systems are typically more. But do you consider total life cycle costing to see when it pays off? If it's less than the expected lifetime, it may be worth considering it. Now is the time for the district to take advantage of state and federal funding opportunities. Not just standard incentives, but grants as well. Electric buses, campus-wide geothermal, advanced heat pump technologies are all in your favor at the present time due to all this legislation. I do hope you take advantage of these opportunities, and I, and a large team of other energy advocates, would be happy to talk to more of you in the OJR community in more detail if you wish. Thank you very much.
Good evening. And thanks for the opportunity to address the school board this evening. I always got to put the mic down.
I'm here to advocate for the wrestling program.
Could
As
you
you can
state
see,
your
I-
name and
Oh, I'm
residence,
sorry. I
please?
apologize. I was
Thank you.
getting
No,
to
that's
that.
okay.
I'm Mark Petroselli. I'm from French Creek Township. I'm a 1978 graduate of Owen J. Roberts. I've lived in the school district way too long, 64 years of my entire life. I have 3 children that graduated from OJR, 2 of which wrestled for our program. I also wrestled very poorly, actually, in 1978. I have coached at OJR off and on, more on than off, since 1987, 88. I ran our youth program prior to Ryan taking over years ago for about 20 plus years. I coached middle school for 5 years here, and I've had the privilege of coaching with Coach D. Raffenbrilla for 7 years at the high school level. I want to talk a little bit about respect. I appreciate the respect everyone that dedicates their time to something that helps the community, and I appreciate all your efforts for that. You should be commended. With that said, I'm also looking for our wrestling program to get a little bit of respect that I feel, quite frankly, is long overdue, and have a dedicated wrestling room in the new expansion of the high school. I believe our program has been overlooked for some time. In my days in 1978, kind of like Ryan said, we had to carry the mats down to the cafeteria, roll them out on dirty floors after everyone ate lunch, and then we practiced. We'd roll them back up after practice, carry them back up, and store them in the high school gym. The only difference today is they're in the auxiliary gym permanently, but they still sit on the floor, dirty, food, etc. Some of them go up in the ceiling. And that causes really 4 major problems for the school district and the student athlete. Less time for our kids to practice. Rolling out mats takes about 20 minutes. You got to roll them out, clean them, and then roll them back up at the end of practice every day. 2, no time to put in extra work after practice. Another group is always waiting for the room because we have tough space right now, which I understand. But this is a real tough one for me to swallow because those kids don't have extra time to put in the work. And every kid I've ever coached in wrestling that I've talked to about the sport, my message was them: if you want to be great at anything, you do it. You do. It has to be one of the most important things to you in your life at that time, and your work ethic will reflect how important it is to you. Safety issues. This should be a big concern of everybody sitting here. Serious safety issues in the auxiliary gym today. It's a hard gym floor. The walls aren't padded properly, and it's old. There's a lot of old padding in there. Can cause significant injuries, which again is liability to the district. A health risk. The aux gym at the end of every school day is not the cleanest of environments. Again, we're rolling the mats out, exposing our student athletes to numerous skin conditions. Other liability issues for the district again. I've experienced this with my son. As a senior, he caught a skin condition that he'll have the rest of his life. I'm not saying it was from the mats at Owen J, but again, that's an issue. I guess in summary, our program is led by 2 of the best people I've encountered in my life. They not only develop wrestlers, but men and now women who'll be better people in life for going through our program. I strongly would hope you consider having a dedicated wrestling room in your expansion plans. Both our kids and especially our coaches deserve that respect. And again, I thank you very much for the ability to speak to you tonight. And I'd love to chat with any one of you about a room moving forward. Have a good night. Thank you.
Dr. Cicito, do we have anyone online?
Yeah, right. I was waiting to see if it was anyone else. My name is Greg Engelhardt, East Vincent Township. I also would like to address the board on the master plan that's on the agenda tonight. First, I would like to thank all of you for your support of the girls wrestling program. I know you're probably tired of me speaking all of last year about advocating for that, but we had a great season. We had 7 participants in our first year. That number will only grow next year. We're really, really excited about it. In the master plan, you know, my children will be gone out of the school by the time this comes to fruition, but I think of all the kids that are coming after it. And one of the nights we took the girls to go down to speak to the young girls of wrestling. And I could not believe how many young children were in that Norchester room. It must have been 75, 80 kids at one of the practices. And I think about the 43 middle school wrestlers that there were this year, both boys and girls. Then you add in the 37 high schoolers. in one room with one dedicated time to do it. I just don't know how it works in the future. And so I'm hoping that you will consider this. The second part that I saw as my sons grew up through the program, one who wrestles in college, now they had to go to other school districts for off-season workouts. Yet football, lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, all do their workouts here. We were going to Boyertown Hill School down in town to go do our off-season workouts because we didn't have a room to get into. And so as our program continues to produce a lot of wrestlers and college level athletes, having a place that they can call home to participate in season as well as out of season to help them both as an athlete and as a student to get better and to chase their dreams is really cool. So I hope you do consider making a permanent wrestling room for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 6, board committee reports. Agenda item 6.1, working session. A working session was held on February 5, 2024 at 6 p.m. The following committees met at this time: Curriculum and Special Education and Finance, Buildings and Grounds. 6.2, the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Mrs. Munson.
The Chester County Intermediate Unit Board met last Wednesday, February 21st. And I had the pleasure of learning about Charon's spelling bee win. And they did include the winning word monotreme, but I had no idea what it was. So I'm very grateful to him for setting the record straight on exactly what a monotreme is. And also want to make sure the board is aware of this Friday's school director and legislator annual briefing that the Chester County Intermediate Unit puts on. I know I've attended in the past and found that very useful to understand what is currently happening in the State House as far as educational bills and issues in Pennsylvania, and what are the current thoughts on how we can make progress on resolving them. Also, very important, we're in budgeting season. So we had the presentation of the 2024 to 25 core occupational education and categorical budgets at this past meeting. There will be no increase in our district's contribution for the core budget. However, for occupational education, that's TCHS, we will see a 4% increase for the tuition for our TCHS students. And they are trying to limit Marketplace, which is the categorical budget, to under the Ackman index of 5.3% this year. So the Marketplace budget increase, I think, will only impact us on things where they're negotiating on our behalf and they still get the best price that they can. Or no, wait, I've got my wires crossed. Sorry. Marketplace would be when we are purchasing services from the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Now I got it right. Thanks. So if we are paying them for services, we may see up to a 5.3% increase, but I think it will depend on the service, exactly how much that percentage increase will be. So we can have a chance to have them come and present to our board if we would like more detail on the Chester County Intermediate Unit plan. If we're interested, I'm sure Dr. Stout can line that up for us. And we would want to review in time to do our approval of their budget in time for April, our April meeting. And then they also had, what was the other thing? Oh, I know, they had a lovely presentation on the diesel program. They're starting up a new diesel program in some space that was obtained close to the TCHS Brandywine location. And we got very interesting information about how actively businesses are looking for people who can do diesel mechanic work. And it sounds like we're going to have a vibrant program there, and it's probably going to quickly run out of space with the number of students interested. And then also our next meeting for CCIU will be Wednesday, March 20th at 7:30 in Coatesville at the Child and Career Development Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson. 6.3, Curriculum and Special Education Committee, Mrs. Sabo.
The curriculum committee did not meet in February. However, summer programs were part of the agenda for the working session on February 5th. Those items are on the agenda for tonight. Dr. Soter discussed the timeline for the summer enrichment camps and courses. The schedule of the camps and courses list is available in March, and district families are given first preference for registration. Jumpstart and Kinder Camp are also discussed. Jumpstart is open to invited is open to invited students who are receiving extra reading or mathematics support during the school year. The program occurs in August for 2 weeks. KinderCamp is an orientation program for kindergarten students held in each elementary school. KinderCamp occurs in August for 4 days. The next curriculum committee meeting will be during the working session on March 4th at 6 p.m. at the high school LGI. That is all.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabo. 6.4, Finance, Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mr. Harmonos.
The Finance Building and Ground Committee met on February 5th as part of the working session. During that working session, the Schrader Group and K&W Engineering presented a schematic overview of the 10-year master facilities plan. As part of agenda item 7.8, the committee is asking for the board to acknowledge receipt of this plan and which will authorize the administration to begin working on capital funding plan scenarios. We expect these scenarios to be ready for the March 11th working session. And if the board approves both a master facilities plan and a capital funding plan, the following step would be to hire design professionals, begin design and development process for these plans. It will take over a year for these plans to be, finalized and for all the approvals that happen. So, this is a long-term thing. Next, we are in the budget development process for next year. We will be sharing budget information and presentations during the March 4th working session and a standalone Finance Building and Grounds Committee meeting on March 11th as well. We have 2 additional agenda items tonight. Agenda item 1312. We will be asking the board to approve a resolution opposing non-public school scholarship vouchers. The passing of Senate Bill number 757 would create scholarship funds that divert public money away from public education and into non-public schools, making the court mandate for funding public schools more difficult to achieve than it already is. And then agenda item 13.4 is a change order for the Fraser Company to add power devices per code and to add AV equipment to the high school LGI. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harmonos. 6.5, Legislative and Policy Committee, Mrs. Munson.
Legislative and Policy Committee also met as part of the board workshop on February 5th. And out of that, we have the 13.5 item tonight for the 2024-2025 school calendar, as well as section 13.8, which is the approval of policies for second reading, where we've got policy 815, acceptable use of internet, computer, and network resources, and policy 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson. 6.6, Personnel Committee, Dr. Rattoli.
No report.
Thank you, Dr. Rattoli. Agenda item 7, I should recommend routine items, consent items. May I have a motion to approve recommended routine matters, consent items 7.2 through 7.11? Dr. Rattoli?
Second.
Dr. Melnazak? I'm actually going to start with our discussion on this agenda item as it is where our district-wide master facility plan is housed. And so I wanted to take a minute to talk about it a little bit and give the board an opportunity to have some discussion if they would like. We as a board are sometimes in a position where we are very far into a process before we hear from the community. And it feels like we are constantly trying to communicate that we would love to hear earlier in the planning. We would love to hear feedback and communication before we move too far down the plan and the process. And so having conversations today, having comments today from the public about this plan is awesome, for lack of a better word. We are very early in this process, right? So what today we are doing is, as Mr. Harmonos said during his discussion, is this is the acceptance, the acknowledgement that we are in the planning stage, and now we will move forward with our architects and our engineers to better create what this plan is going to look like as we move forward. So having the opportunity to hear from the community at this time as to what can and can't change and how best to meet the needs of our students, because that's what we're trying to do here, is really important and it's impactful to me. And so while we will take a vote to acknowledge this, I want to be clear for everyone, including the board members, we are not voting on a final plan tonight. What we are voting on is our intention to move forward to discuss what this plan is going to look like as it completely fleshes out. So this was a good time to discuss with us what we want as this plan develops. But I wanted to make sure that the board understands and that the public understands that this is not a vote on what the plan is. This is a vote on how we can and what our steps are so that we can move forward in the financing. We can move forward with the engineers and the architects to better flush out what the plan will actually look like for the next 10 years. So I want to make sure that's really clear for everyone in the room and what we're doing so that we can all move forward with the understanding that we are taking feedback into consideration as we are moving forward. And this isn't a final plan that is being approved tonight. Does everyone on the board get that? Is there any other discussion on these agenda items?
Thank you. That was more eloquent than I would have said, but I concur.
That's why they gave me the gavel.
That's why but I did concur. We're not voting to build anything today. We're just, voting to acknowledge that we are going to maybe build something, and the exact structure, the exact rooms, the exact plan is still to be determined. I would also hope that any new construction would consider renewable energy sources as a vital part. But keep coming back. I'm sure I'll see a lot of wrestlers here in the months and years to come.
Well, and it's wonderful to hear so much from our wrestling community, and I'm hoping the other sports communities also understand that it's not too late. Tonight wasn't the last time to get in their opinions about what changes we should make as we do this big energetic plan.
Just I want to throw in there too, that we're not approving a budget for this either at this point. The budget is
Correct.
very conceptual and we're not promising or planning to spend any dollars at this juncture.
This vote allows us to go down the path to define what the budget would be. Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, we are moving into agenda item 8, the recommend routine matters. 8.1 is the acknowledgement of the receipt of donations, contributions, and gifts. See y'all, thank you. I mean, I don't usually clear a whole room this quickly, I'm just saying. I mean, okay. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the following receipt of donations, contributions, and gifts. For the district, Ohio Pile Prints Incorporated donated a percentage back for school spirit wear that was sold at local retailers in the amount of $66.29. East Vincent PTA donated $1,400 for a second grade field trip to the Reading Public Museum and a fourth grade field trip to the Franklin Institute, as well as $750 for an author, Daniel Jude Miller, to visit on March 15, 2024. At North Coventry, the PTO donated $1,014 for a fifth grade field trip to the Montgomery County Challenger Space Center and $1,144 donation for a second grade field trip to the Da Vinci Science Center. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Halmanos and Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? As always, thank you very much, especially this month to our very generous PTAs and PTOs for supporting our programming. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 9, the approval of routine matters, consent items 9.2 through 9.4. Do I have a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 9.2 through 9.4 as action consent items?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos,
Second.
Dr. Malmazak, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 10, board discussion. Is there anything at this time that the board would like to discuss?
Well, I guess while we're talking about master plan, we should add that it's also useful for people to comment on what they see in the plan that is already included, they like and want to keep in the plan, since we are so early in the planning stages. It's very helpful to have that feedback.
Yep. For sure. Anything else? Okay, moving on to agenda item 11, old business. Do we have any old business, Mrs. Kerman?
We do not, Mrs. Peterson.
Thank you. New business, the agenda item 12, new business, approval of personnel matters. May I have a, 12.1, motion to approve personnel matters, consent items 12.2 through 12.5. May I have a motion to approve the following personnel matters, which are items 12.2 through 12.5 as action consent items as presented?
So moved.
Dr.
Second.
Malbazak, Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 13, new business. Mrs. Carmine, do you suggest that we take this next vote as a roll call vote, or is an aye and nay?
I don't believe that we need to do a roll call vote, but I'll, defer to our
You
solicitor.
don't need to do a roll call vote, it just has to be passed by a majority of the board.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 13.1, the motion to appoint Sarah Evans as school board director to fill school board vacancy. May I have a motion to appoint Sarah Evans as school board director to fill school board vacancy through the first Monday in December 2025?
So moved.
Dr. Otoli, Mrs. Chevelle Fuller, any discussion?
So here we go. So I wasn't here physically when we were discussing the new school board member. I'm thrilled and can't wait for you to join the group. That's all.
Thank you. And I will second that, it is interesting and rewarding work. And on behalf of the rest of us, as well as our entire community, we appreciate when people put their names forward. And I am excited for this vote and for your swearing in tomorrow. Okay,
Also, just thank you to all the other applicants.
Yeah.
We always encourage people to step up, and a lot of people try to, and hopefully will again.
I did make a motion. Thank you, sorry. Sometimes so excited, I was afraid I got ahead of myself on that. I apologize. Okay. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations, Mrs. Evans. Ms. Evans. Okay, 13.2, the approval of out-of-state overnight student trips. May I have a motion for the approval of out-of-state overnight trips as both presented and as a noted change at the beginning of the meeting?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo, do I have a second? Dr. Otoli, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.3, the approval of conference attendance. May I have a motion for the approval of conference attendance as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Malmazak,
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.4, the approval of the 2024 summer programs. May I have a motion for the approval of the 2024 summer programs as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo,
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? I will say that I love that our district not only offers academic programs for our students who need them over the summer, but enrichment programs. I think so many of these programs are a great opportunity for our students to try new things and be involved in new things. And I think it's a total win for both our staff and our community. And I think I'm excited that we are once again offering this. Any other discussion?
Question, what is STEMpire? STEMPIRE.
I would assume it's one of our STEM programs, science, technology.
What's, oh, what's the rest of the letters? I looked it up, I couldn't find it. Curious, I'm sure it's something.
Yeah, I don't know, but we can find that out and report it in board line on Friday.
Curious.
But you may not take it. As interesting as it may wind up being.
I figured the RE stood for Roman Empire.
Yes, I know you. All, if, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion passes. 13.5, the approval of the school calendar for the 2024-2025 school year. May I have a motion for the approval of the school calendar for the 24-25 school year as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Munson,
Second.
Dr. Melmezak, any discussion?
The green on the school calendar for half-day students doesn't match the green on the actual calendar. I think it's supposed to. Just so we're clear on that.
You mean the shade, the exact shade on the,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the color,
So it's-
the
it's
shade
not-
of green?
So just being in the
Okay.
color range green is not good
Well,
enough.
no, I'm
We
just
should
serious
make it
because
an
the
accurate-
colors are very confusing. We've got,
Well,
I mean, I'm not-
Especially if you're red-green colorblind, they would look like different colors.
it's, we're using different shades of peach and pink and so I just want to make sure that we should be consistent. It's professional.
That are marked by a combination of colors because they are both half day at the end of it. So, I do appreciate that there are now.
Formatting concern.
With some of those overlap days, but
And then is the holiday that we approved 2 years ago on this calendar, the Eid holiday?
it is.
What date is that? I can't discern that.
March 31st, but, yes, it's on the list.
Okay, so that's the 31st.
It's March 31st.
Gotcha.
Your phone isn't on March
So
31st.
That's yellow.
Because it's a profession, it's a
Professional
service day that
development.
shows.
Gotcha, as
Correct.
opposed to district close, which is peach, no, pink. Versus peach, which is PSSA.
Correct.
Okay. So I think the only correction we need to do is make the green shading consistent. Thank you.
That's something we can look at. A comment that I want to make about the calendar too is if you take a look at the calendar, it would have our last student day as Friday, June 6th. So we really try and end that first week in June and not move to the following week. So if we are to have some, hopefully not escaped inmate days, but hopefully if we have weather days that we need to call, our plan next year, and we'll communicate this, would be to move to flexible instructional days immediately. The flexible instructional days that we would have in the calendar, we would move to those immediately to try and end school on the week of June 6th. So I just want to point that out. Normally, if school ends in the middle of that week, we build in a couple traditional snow days so we can end that week. But with ending on a Friday, we would move to flexible instructional days immediately. So we will communicate that, but I just wanted to note that before this calendar gets approved.
Okay, on January, there are two Mondays in a row, and you had explained that
Yep.
in an email, and I think we did it this year too.
Yes, so one of those Mondays is mandatory because it is
Right,
a federal
it's a
holiday.
federal holiday.
The other is at the request because that is also when we have our semester break after our second quarter. And that Monday is used for professional development to both have data review as well as education for our staff in that mid-year point. If we were to push it behind or forward, we would either be before we are ready to collect the data, or if we push it too far forward, we lose time to enact what we learned from that data. So it is, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's I understand the dates that it is a timing issue that needs to happen at the end of the month. And I know this because I also asked the question. Any additional discussion on this year's calendar? And I have a motion. correct? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, 13.6, the approval of 1502 local holidays resolution for the 24-25 school year. May I have a motion for the approval of 1502 local holidays resolution for the 24-25 school year as presented? And the dates listed are November 29, December 24, January 20, February 17, and April 18.
So moved.
Second, Mrs. Munson, any discussion?
What's the difference between a local holiday and school and district closed?
I think it has to do with our policy on how the calendar is to be formed, and there are some dates that are already designated as holidays for every single year in the policy, but some of them we just need to declare as local policies according to this 1502.
And it also affects our non-teaching administrative staff. So those who are not under teaching contracts. So for instance, our administration, those would then become holidays for them. The whole district closes at that time, and we're not differentiating between a student holiday or a professional development day. The district is closed that day.
No, I understand, but
Okay.
some are local holidays
Mhm.
where the district is closed. And some are just the district is closed, but they're not a local holiday.
I don't know.
So, Mrs. Crumrine, I will ask you to answer this question because I have the same question every year because I look at these, but by policy, we have to state them every year. So I have the same question, but Jackie, I'll ask you just to clarify that.
Sure, and if I state anything incorrectly, then maybe Ms. Mintz can chip in. But according to the school code, we should be approving, and this was at the recommendation of our solicitor years ago, designation of certain local holidays on the days that we have off. So we just designate 5 in the calendar on the years before we are bargaining. So because we are bargaining at different times, every contract really renews at a different time. We just do it every year so that we don't miss it. So Ms. Mintz, is there anything else that you might want to clarify?
No, I think you did a really good job of explaining.
Well, thank you. It is part of the school code, and I know it's confusing, but that's what we do at the recommendation of our solicitor.
Okay, thank you.
All
Aye.
in favor? Any
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.7, the approval to request Act 80 approval from the Pennsylvania Department of Education for the following calendar days for the 23-24 school year. May we have approval to request Act 80 approval to request Act 80 approval from the Pennsylvania Department of Education for the following calendar days for the 23-24 school year as presented. So moved. Mrs. Munson. Mrs. Bowler. Any discussion?
Can you just explain? I was
I'm
trying
not
to look
even
this up. I'm not, I was trying to look this up and I understand like we have to, for teachers and such, have 180 days, but that didn't tell me why we were approving certain days. I'm sorry.
No, we'll try and answer it for you. So most years we don't use these days, but they are Act 80 days. So if we were to decide to go less than 180 days of instructional time or instructional days, we could apply to use any of these days for Act 80 days. So that's what it is. So we just get them approved in case we would want to use them. But at this point, we're not planning to use them, but we just get them approved in case we want to use them at the end.
So basically there are days that could be approved.
Correct.
In our 180 days.
Correct. We approve them. If we went less than 180 days, we would pick some of these days to do it, and then we would be in compliance with the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Got it. And we approved this after the fact?
No, they're just approved right now, so we could apply for it to the Pennsylvania Department of Education if we need it because they're approved by us. But the likelihood is we will not apply for them. We haven't had to since I've been superintendent. But in the case if we would have, I mean, we're at our 4th flexible instructional day now. If we get beyond that 5th flexible instructional day, we may come back and try and use some of these so that we're extending our school year.
Got it. You better knock on wood, please.
But to clarify, these are for the current school year as opposed to the last thing we voted for, which is for the planned school year, right?
Wasn't there a thing where we can apply to have the Cavalcante days removed from the FID, but we decided not to do that, and we're gonna wait and see?
Correct. There's been a lot of changes since then. So the legislation also changed because previously you had to do 180 days of the school year, and there were a number of instructional hours, like at the secondary level, you had to do 900 instructional hours. The legislation has changed now, so it's 180 days or the instructional hours. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but if we would have several more snow days, we would be coming to you looking to do some of these Act 80 days, so we would not be doing 180 days. We would still have the instructional hours that we need. So things are always changing.
So we can't apply to have those other days from the fall.
Not at this point,
To
but if we
be
get beyond our 5
grace
flexible
period,
instructional, if
whatever.
we get beyond our 5 flexible instructional days, we may be applying for these to have less student days.
Okay.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? The motion passes. 13.8, the approval of policies for second reading. May I have a motion for the approval of policies for second reading as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Munson and Mrs. Sabo, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.9, the ratification of homebound instruction. May I have a motion for the ratification of homebound instruction for students A and B as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo? Second. Mrs. Munson? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. 13.10, the approval of student activity club advisors and student officers. May I have a motion for the approval of club advisors and student officers in accordance with the provisions of section 511 of the Pennsylvania School Code for the 2023-24 school year as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Malmazak?
Second.
Mr. Harmonos, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.11, the approval to amend policy 8.1, total annual positions. May I have a motion to approve, for the approval to amend policy 8.1 for the total annual positions for the 23-24 school year as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Sabo?
Second.
Dr. Ratoli, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.12, the approval of resolution opposed to non-public school scholarship vouchers. May I have a motion for the approval of the resolution opposed to non-public school scholarship vouchers as presented?
Second.
Dr. Ratoli and Dr. Melnazak, any discussion?
I think it's important for us to realize that as protectors of public education in Pennsylvania, it's super important to protect the taxpayer dollars that are coming in for public education. And while I fully support any parent who wishes to send their student to a private institution, draining the public school funds in order to do it just doesn't seem like a very wise direction to go for our society to me.
In addition, there's really no accountability for the private school. So if a parent wants to move their child from a failing school, there's really no way to know if that private school is any better. So just giving out money is even worse than giving out money.
And the court order was to make public education funding increased and thereby more equitable. And taking money out of that and putting it into private religious schools is a contradiction to that.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. 1313, the approval of the Community Aquatics Program for the spring 2024 season. May I have a motion for the approval of the Community Aquatics Program for the spring 24 season as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos,
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. 1314, the approval of construction change order. May I have a motion for the approval of construction change orders for renovations to the high school library and LGI as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Harmonos,
Second.
Dr. Melnisak, any discussion? And these were the change orders that you discussed in your committee report, correct? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 1315, the approval ratification of professional services agreement, maintenance agreements. May I have a motion for the approval, ratification of professional service agreement, maintenance agreements as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harmonos and Dr. Melnisak, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 14.1, public comment. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate your name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. Also, if you have any question for the school board, please email all school board directors at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net and you will receive a written response. For anyone online who would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
How you doing? Drew Holloway, North Coventry Township. I just want to say thank you for the board, looking into the RCO. You guys looked into it, reached out to our member, and I just want to appreciate you looking into it and taking the time. Thank you.
We'll go online.
Molly Waggle, if you can unmute and please state your full name and township of residence.
Sure. Hi, I'm Molly Waggle. I'm a resident of East Vincent Township, a mother of a kindergartner and a second grader in the district. And I really appreciate everything the school board is doing, and I appreciate the transparency through the master plan and opportunity to provide input early at this stage. And as many have mentioned already, the proposed plan has many great features, but I was concerned with the lack of consideration and planning for high efficiency equipment and inclusion of renewables, which I did appreciate you addressing that, there will be further consideration for these. And I'm just here to raise up that while fuel prices are relatively low now, they are projected to rise in the coming years. And in order to reduce the burden of taxpayers in the future, it's critical that we consider a full life cycle costing now. And so that means not just looking at the equipment, but then what that means is then considering the cost that it will take to run it, maintenance for the projected lifetime of the equipment. And especially now with so much funding available to help offset the cost of some of this equipment, now is the time to do so. So this is perfect time that you're going through the planning right now. In addition to providing the fiscal advantages, this also supports increased sense of impact in the OJR community that, that we're doing something else, something greater than just us, and doing the district's part to reduce impact on greenhouse gas emissions and other particulate matter, which supports which improves air quality. As well, it can provide students educational experience with new technologies in buildings, sustainability, operations, and more. So thank you for your time.
Agenda item 15, board discussion, follow-up, and request for information. I actually do have one brief request, as I spent quite a bit of time over the last few days with the master plan again. I know we are about to rework parts of it, and et cetera. As it has been copied and shared and entered into plans, the legibility on the documents is going down, especially as you look at some of the buildings and the labels of it. And I think it's, if I'm having trouble reading them and I've looked at them for a really long time, I suspect others will as well. So if we can take a look at clearing up some of those pictures.
I'd also just like to mention that we kind of breezed through it quickly during the policy reading, but the policy 819 for suicide awareness, prevention and response is an important policy for our district, and it's good that we have that in motion.
Anything else? Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you, everyone.